I'll never emotionally recover from this. What is going on, everybody, and welcome to my review for The Long Walk. This is a film adaptation of the very first novel that Stephen King actually ever wrote back in the late 60s, early 70s while he was a high school and college student. He would later publish it under the pseudonym Richard Bachman, and the basic premise for this film is there's been some kind of big war that has left the United States in financial flux, and to promote productivity, they have this yearly event where they get a young adult volunteer from each of the 50 states, and they have them compete in this literal long walk where the contestants will walk as far as they possibly can until one is left remaining. The way people are eliminated from this competition is you are issued 3 warnings. You have to maintain a pace of 3 miles per hour. If you fall below that pace, you get 1 warning. If you don't pick it back up, you get a second warning, and then you will get a third and final warning. And if you have not rejoined the walk after that third warning, you get what they call your ticket: getting shot and killed. Now, to be completely honest, up until this film's announcement, I had never heard of this story before. I do dabble, but I'm not the biggest reader out there, and so my experience with Stephen King is mainly through the film adaptations of his stories, many of which I'm a really big fan of. Films like Pet Sematary and Misery and Carrie are some of my all-time favorite horror movies, but if you also look outside of the horror genre, you've got movies such as The Green Mile, Shawshank Redemption, The Running Man, and Stand By Me, some of the most heralded movies ever made. And so even though there are quite a few duds in the Stephen King film adaptation catalog, It Chapter 2, I still to this day do get excited to see one of his stories get brought to the big screen. Add on to that, the trailers for this movie were very effective at getting me immediately hooked into this film, and so put all that together, and this was one of my most anticipated films of 2025. And now that I have seen The Long Walk, I am very happy to report that all of the anticipation, excitement, and hype that I was feeling was well worth it, and it was returned upon tenfold. This movie hit me way harder than I ever could have imagined that it would, and it made me feel things that reminded me why I love movies so much, and I am very excited to talk about it here with you guys today. If you enjoy this video, please consider giving the video a like and subscribing to the channel as well for more movie reviews and content. Make sure to get down in the comments below and tell me what your favorite Stephen King film adaptation is. I would love to hear from you guys. Now let's get into this review. Kicking things off with the positives, and at this story's foundation, I just think lies a very interesting concept, this dystopian alternative US reality where, due to the effects of some big war, has left the United States vulnerable, and they are no longer regarded as this major power that we know them to be in real life. And that in and of itself is a compelling idea, but then add on that one of their methods of rebuilding is to host this yearly, brutally twisted reality show of sorts that will see 50 young men from all across the country get exploited and manipulated into believing that their sacrifice will be for the greater good because it will contribute to the United States regaining their powerful position and the highly regarded reputation that they once had. And I think that will resonate with a lot of people because it's that same exploitation and manipulation that we have seen take place all throughout the history of this country. For example, the Vietnam War, which is when Stephen King was writing this story. But even now, though it's done differently because we're not being drafted and sent off to die in some illegal war, we are still seeing a lot of that same brainwashing taking place amongst the young people in our real lives. And given all of the political chaos that we experience on a day-to-day basis, I think a movie like this coming out right now really matters, and it's pretty scary because while you're watching it, you feel like we are just one major event happening away from falling into this horrifying alternative reality, and that is a terrifying thought. but it makes this movie even more impactful than I think it already would have been, just giving the timing of its release. On the directing side of things, I think Francis Lawrence absolutely knocked it out of the park. I was reading and watching a lot of the interviews he was doing for the press run of this movie, and you can tell that he has a deep appreciation for the source material and holds it in very high regard. He is the director of the last 4 Hunger Games movies, and he directly accredits The Long Walk to the existence of those books and films and his involvement in them. And you can't help but see the parallels between the two when you're watching this, but also with things like Battle Royale and Squid Game, things that have had major impacts on pop culture and transcended genres and are massively successful and popular. They all follow this blueprint that Stephen King was able to construct as a college student almost 60 years ago. Lawrence also doesn't pull any punches as it pertains to the violence in this movie. It's very unapologetic, and I think it's one of the benefits that a story gains when it goes from book to film, is that it's one thing to read about something violent or to imagine it. It's a whole other thing to see it. And I think when your eyes are actually witnessing it, you feel it a lot more. And there were multiple times where I thought, like, right before it happens, the camera would cut away and it just, nope, boom, shows it right there, and it lands a lot differently than I think if you were to just read it off of a page. I also like that even though there is a lot of political and social commentary that you could take away from this movie, he was very intent on making it not feel like it was leaning towards one side of the other, and I think he does that flawlessly. I feel like this is the kind of movie that you can understand and agree with what it is saying regardless of what your political and social beliefs are. But where I feel this movie exceeds the most is the character work. I can't think of the last time I was this emotionally invested in the entirety of a cast within a movie. And it's a real accomplishment because outside of Mark Hamill and Judy Greer, who don't even have that prominent of roles in this movie, it's a lot of actors that you either have never seen before or at most have seen them in one other thing. And so you can really lose yourself in them as characters. And oh boy, lose myself did I. Because of how good this movie is at dealing with its themes of companionship and brotherhood, I almost immediately felt connected to all of these guys, and I lost count at the amount of times that I teared up, but I know I full on cried at least on 4 separate occasions, whether they were just little character moments or monologues or the deaths. The deaths are brutal, but all of the emotional beats in this movie hit me like a ton of bricks. And even though it's very awkward to cry in a room full of strangers when I couldn't tell if anybody else was crying, so it might have just been me, I couldn't help but let out the waterworks. From top to bottom, I think everybody involved with the cast here does a fantastic job, but just to shout out a couple of the standouts, Mark Hamill as the Major does a very effective job at making me despise him. Every time he opened his mouth, I just wanted someone to put a bullet in it, and that's a very interesting thing to feel while watching a Mark Hamill performance, because he's always been a very likable actor, and his most notable role that he's ever given as Luke Skywalker, one of the most recognizable and praised heroes in all of film. So it was very fun to watch him play this kind of character, and I enjoyed how much I hated him in this film. Cooper Hoffman as Raymond Garrity is essentially the lead of this film. He's kind of the focal point throughout the entire story. He is the son of the late great Philip Seymour Hoffman, and I remember seeing him in Licorice Pizza back in 2021. I believe that was his film debut, and I really enjoyed him in that movie, and I was looking forward to see where he would go from there. And though he's only got a couple of films under his belt now, I think he has shown he is a really strong young talent, and I think he's got a really bright future ahead of him as an actor. His character carries a lot of the weight as it pertains to the negative emotions that are displayed in this film, and as the story progresses and more plot revelations are made, you can really understand his bleak and nihilistic outlook on the world. And though it is always best to try to be as optimistic as possible and fight off pessimism as best you can, I think a lot lot of people can relate to the way he sees things. And so therefore he is a lead that I feel is very easy to place yourself in the shoes of. But when it comes to performances and characters, nobody in this movie impressed me more than David Johnson as Peter McVries. This is only the second movie I have seen him in. It's this and Alien Romulus, and I came out of both of those movies feeling like he was an absolute scene stealer. And in this movie, particularly as Peter McVries, he might be one of my all-time favorite characters in film history. Just like how I said Cooper Hoffman's character is who carries a lot of the darker energy in this film, David Johnson is the light. He's the one that by far has the most positive attitude amongst the group. He's the one that tries to galvanize everybody and form those bonds. If our lead starts to deteriorate physically or mentally, he's always the one that's there to pick him back up and support him. He's essentially the dream best friend. And while watching this movie, a lot of the times that I shed tears were a direct result of this character's actions, and it could be from something as simple as just talking, specifically in the moments where he is having one-on-one conversations with Cooper Hoffman. And these are the moments in the film that while you are watching, I really want you to pay attention to the things that Peter is saying, because as someone like myself, a person in their 20s who has had continuous struggles with mental health, the things he says during these conversations really resonated with me. And even though he is a fictional character, his sentiment about always trying to find the light in the dark is very real. And it's not something that going in I knew that I needed to hear, but it definitely was, especially in the times that we are in these days. And so coming out of this movie, I felt reinvigorated with a new level of optimism that I didn't really know I was capable of. And I hope that anyone who can relate to my experience, when they see this movie, they will feel the same way coming out of it. So I cannot give enough credit to everybody responsible and involved for bringing this character to life. And I thank them for what it was able to make me feel and really made me remember why I love movies so much and the people within them. So there you guys have it. Those are all of my thoughts on The Long Walk. I don't really have any negative criticisms to give here. I do have a couple of nitpicks in regards to the last 5 minutes or so of the movie, but I don't even really think they're worth mentioning because, like I said, they are just nitpicks. And I think this is pretty much a perfect film. I cannot recommend this to you guys enough. It's an important movie. It's one that needs to be seen by everybody, and it needs to be seen by everybody on the big screen at the movie theater. This is a 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10, 100 out of 100. Whatever your movie rating scale is, I think that this should max it out. And I thought it was locked up already, but I gotta say, as of right now, between this and Sinners, it is officially a two-man race for my #1 movie of the year. So I definitely have some decisions to make there. But let me know what you guys thought about The Long Walk down in the comments below. And as always, please consider giving the video a like and subscribing to the channel as well for more movie reviews and content. I can't wait to see you all in my next one. Peace.